hadn't really listened to Bob Dylan that much until the start of 2025. I saw A Complete Unknown starring Timothy Chalamet, and it just sent me into a deep dive of Bob Dylan's discography. I've only really made it halfway through, and whenever I tell my friends that I like Bob Dylan, my favorite thing is they always say,
his voice is...
You don't like his voice?
I think that's funny and ironic because that's the very thing that sticks out to me the most.
It's a funny
Yes.
voice, you know, it's
Yeah.
like a voice that's never been one of the great tenors of our time.
No.
But it's got it's got a timbre and it's got a projection and it's got a feeling, so...
Obviously, besides his music, studying him as an artist has helped me in a lot of ways. And I want to talk about a few of those things, starting with his voice. You know, it's pretty obvious when you listen to Bob Dylan music, especially later in his career or even live performances, that he mumbles or it's raspy. To me, that's what makes it special, you know, in a time where AI music is coming out and everything sounds too clean, and even like the latest music, you know, if everything has to sound so nice and pleasing to the ears, you know, but a lot of the lyrics fall flat. And so, you know, listening to his music, you can feel what he's feeling. You know, a lot of times it's irony, you know, he might be making fun of something or even the listener, but even in the heartbreaking songs, you can feel it. You know, one of my favorite recordings of his was actually in the movie. Timothy Chalamet played it in the movie. And then Bob Dylan's actual recording is even more like heartbreaking, is I Was Young When I Left Home.
And I never wrote a letter to my home.
And why that's spoken to me specifically is, you know, when you're an artist and you're trying to create things, you're so judgmental of your work and comparing it to other people's. And you're always trying to see how it stacks up. Or you see something, like for me as a filmmaker, I see somebody make a film and I'm like, man, I wish my stuff could look like that, or wish I could pull those things off. And you're ignoring what it is about yourself that's real and that you can bring out and make it connect with people in your own original way. You know, for example, telling more personal stories. Like, Bob doesn't explain a lot about his work, but I believe it's in the work. And that leads me to number 2. You know, the most important thing we can do as artists, and the thing that I've struggled with, and I'm sure everyone has struggled with, is just keep creating things. And I think one of the things that's amazed me the most about Bob's career is the amount of work he's put out. Just continued to put out different things, concept albums, you know, almost playing a character. Like one of my favorite albums of his is John Wesley Harding, you know, where he like goes into this different style of music right after one of his most famous works and best, Blonde on Blonde. And I've spent the whole year obsessed with him and listening to all of his stuff. And I've only really made it halfway through his work up until Desire and all the stuff in the Rolling Thunder Review. And so while many of us want to try to create the perfect thing, you know, that is the mistake. It's in creating things, in constantly writing stuff and constantly putting stuff out there that you find your voice, you get out all of the bad stuff. And in Bob's case, not a lot of the stuff was bad stuff. And I think that that comes from the obsession. There's so many stories about Bob just nonstop writing, nonstop putting out music. And that blends in with the first thing I mentioned about it not being perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that goes into a lot of his live performances. You know, people are like, oh, I hate to see Bob Dylan live. One of the reasons is that, you know, he doesn't always play the hits. And he definitely, when he does, he rarely plays them like they are in the studio. You know, he believes that if you want to listen to the studio recording, listen to it on the vinyl or on Spotify or on Apple or whatever. And that leads me into my third point, which is the thing that really struck me in the movie A Complete Unknown and in Bob's life and work is, you know, moving away from expectations. When I first watched that movie and I saw how much people loved his folk music, you know, you hear countless stories of artists just continue to make the certain kind of music that people love, and it becomes boring. Where Bob went against those expectations and even got booed for it. And the same music that he got booed for 10 years later, there was hundreds of thousands of people lining up to see his shows.
Don't boo me anymore.
Jesus, you know, I don't understand how can they buy the tickets up so fast?
My favorite lyric of his is, if you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. That speaks to his growth as an artist, you know, not staying in the same lane, but switching up and not pleasing people, but trying to surprise them. And in the live shows, that's the magic, is he would change the lyrics to certain songs. He would do certain surprises. And even now at 80 something years old, when you go see him live, many people are like, oh, what's he babbling about? Because sometimes it sounds like he's babbling. But every now and then you'll get a little like ounce of change or ounce of originality to a song that's existed for 60 plus years, and there's the magic in that. And for example, my favorite song of his is Tangled Up in Blue. And the magic of that song isn't necessarily in the song itself, in the story or in the lyrics itself. It's in the fact that almost any verse could be written in that song. And he has changed it up multiple times and written many different verses and included them in the songs or in live performances and in different recordings. And I think that whole idea is freeing, not having to stick with the things you've always done, giving yourself freedom to change, to grow, to even perform your old things or revisit old scripts with the way you've changed now and breathing new life into it that way. And so, yeah, if you're interested in listening to Bob Dylan, I don't even know where to point you to start, because I created a list of my top 10. It's more like 20. I mean, the list could go on, songs. And they're not really any of the songs that first got me in, like a Rolling Stone my dad used to play in the car growing up, or, a lot of the folk music that's in the movie. It's a lot of his stuff from, 64, 65, Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61 Revisited, Blonde on Blonde, Blood on the Tracks, Desire, and a lot of his little studio outtakes. They're unofficially released songs. Yeah, this is a little intro video. I hope to do many more on Bob Dylan, because this last year he's been a huge influence to me as an artist and a person, I think. And his music has helped me get through a lot of things that I haven't really been able to voice or even understand fully myself. So yeah, thanks, and see you next time.